Have you ever met someone who felt too perfect? Like they were scripted just for you? It was a sticky Chicago summer night, the kind that wraps you in heat and won't let go. I was at a gritty bar, the Cubs game buzzing on a faded TV, the air heavy with the smell of spilled whiskey and fried wings. My friends were a loud blur, their laughter mixing with the clink of bottles, and I was leaning against the counter, half lost in the glow of a neon sign, my beer sweating in my hand. That's when Matt appeared, sliding onto the stool beside, like he'd been waiting for the moment. "Hell of a game, right?" he said, his voice smooth, cutting through the chaos. His grin was sharp, confident, his hazel eyes catching the light like they held a secret. We fell into easy talk, baseball, bars, the city's pulse, and it felt like we'd known each other forever. My friends drifted away, caught in their own orbits, leaving me with this stranger who felt oddly familiar. Matt was magnetic, his flannel sleeves rolled up, a weathered anchor tattoo on his wrist hinting at stories untold. He showed me his Instagram, a grid of adventure, beaches, mountains, city nights, hundreds of followers, a life that screamed normal. Just a guy like me, I thought, swapping Instagrams, our phones passing like a handshake. But as I rejoined my friends, his gaze lingered, a weight I couldn't shake, his smile too fixed like a photograph that didn't move. You'll never see him again, I told myself. But the night felt different now, like I'd stepped into a story I didn't write. The next evening, a Saturday, I was at an open-air bar by the Chicago River, the city's lights dancing on the water like scattered stars. It was Tyler's birthday, and our group was electric, singing off-key, toasting. With frosted glasses, the air carried the scent of charred burgers and summer sweat, the kind that clings to your skin. I posted an Instagram story, a quick clip of Tyler laughing, the skyline glowing, my phone warm in my hand. Matt's profile lingered in my mind, his sunset post from yesterday, Chasing the Wild, still open on my screen. I was by the railing, the river's dark flow pulling my gaze, when a hand gripped my shoulder, firm, almost too tight. "Turn around," my gut whispered. And there was Matt, his grin slicing through the twilight, his eyes too bright under the fairy lights. "My favorite spot," he said, his voice loud, like he was claiming the moment. My stomach twisted, a fleeting thought, did he see my story? Brushed aside as I dapped him up, his grip lingering. "This is Matt," I said to my friends, their nods half-hearted, their attention elsewhere. Matt wove into the group effortlessly, his tales of Chicago's hidden corners drawing laughs, his charm a spotlight. But the river kept pulling my eyes, its currents swirling, whispering secrets I couldn't hear. Tyler watched Matt, his jaw tight, his beer untouched. "He's all right, right?" I asked, needing to hear it. Tyler shrugged, his voice low. "Seems fine," but his eyes said something else, something I wasn't ready to face. As the night wound down, Matt's silhouette stood out, sharp against the fading lights. Just a coincidence, I told myself. But his hand on my shoulder felt like a chain, its weight carrying me into the next day, into his world. Days passed, but Matt's presence clung to me. His Instagram posts, cliffs, waves, endless skies, popping up like reminders. I tried to shake it, diving into work, dodging Tyler's knowing looks, but Matt's message came like a spark in the dark. "Golf Sunday? Early. You in?" The words were casual, but they pulled at me, a challenge wrapped in a smile. I'm no golfer. My last try was a disaster. A ball lost in the rough, Tyler's laughter still echoing in my ears. But Matt's invite was a door to something new, a break from the grind. I texted Tyler and others, hoping for a buffer, but they bailed. Headaches, early shifts, the usual excuses. So I agreed, meeting Matt at a course just outside Chicago. The dawn sky streaked with pink and amber. The grass was dew-kissed, the air crisp, the world hushed except for the hum of distant traffic. Matt was waiting, his clubs polished, his grin easy but his eyes sharp, like he was sizing me up. "Let's see what you got," he said, his voice teasing but edged with something else. We played 9 holes, my swings awkward, his precise, each shot slicing through the mist. The course felt like a dream, its green waves rolling under the rising sun. But Matt's stories of golf trips, old friends, desert nights felt too polished, like lines from a script. Over diner food later, the smell of grease thick, his questions grew pointed. My job, my plans, my life, each one a probe I deflected with a laugh. He's just interested, I thought. But the memory of his grip by the river, Tyler's warning, stirred a shadow in my mind, a doubt I couldn't name. Matt's next message hit like a thunderbolt. "Grand Canyon hike, August 15th, 18. You down?" His Instagram post, a canyon glowing red captioned "Find Yourself," had planted the seed. The Grand Canyon a lifelong dream, its vastness a call to escape. But his words, "Solo, just us," sent a shiver through me. The same unease from the bar, the golf course, now sharper, more insistent. Say yes. My heart pushed, the adventure too big to refuse, but my mind replayed Tyler's voice. "You sure? About this guy?" I sat in my apartment, the city's hum a distant drone, and debated. I texted Tyler and friends, begging them to join, but got the usual: work, money, no time. Tyler's reply was blunt: "Be careful." I ignored it, checking calendar, confirming the dates, and texting Matt, "I'm in." His response was instant, a flight confirmation, a plan set in motion. The weeks before were a haze of packing, daydreams of red trails. But Matt's shadow loomed, his Instagram stories, city lights, desert roads, feeling like breadcrumbs, leading me somewhere I couldn't see. I ran into him once more, a rooftop bar, the Chicago heat thick, his laugh piercing the crowd. He handed me a drink, his fingers grazing mine, his eyes holding mine too long. "This trip's gonna be epic," he said, his voice low, like a vow. I nodded, but his words felt heavy, a weight I carried onto the plane on August 15th. The desert greeted us, its silence vast, its beauty a promise laced with dread. We stopped at a diner, its neon flickering, burgers greasy, and I felt the dream fraying. Matt's grin a mask I couldn't trust. Phoenix's night was a black veil as Matt drove us to the Airbnb, the desert's expanse hidden. The car's hum a low pulse. My phone lit up with Matt's Instagram story, a road shot captioned "Into the Unknown." His profile glowed in the dark, but his silence in the car felt heavy. His words from Chicago, "Gonna change you." A whisper in my mind. "You're just nervous," I told myself. But the diner's warmth was gone, replaced by a chill I couldn't shake. The Airbnb was a squat house, its stucco cracked, its windows blind. Inside, the air was musty like old secrets, the living room bare, a worn couch, a scarred table, a lamp flickering. Matt led me to the bedroom, his steps too quick, his voice too light. "Here's the spot," he said, but I stopped cold. One bed, its sheets pale, no second room, no escape. Only one bed, my mind roared, panic rising. "Just one?" I asked, my voice sharp. Matt pointed to the couch. "Pull out. No charge, man. Chill." His smile was easy, but his eyes were wrong, glinting like glass. I wanted to fight, to leave. But the Grand Canyon's pull, the free stay, dulled my edge. Make it work, I thought, dragging the couch's frame out. Its metal cold, the sheets smelling of dust and time. I lay down, the house too quiet, its shadows moving in the corners. Matt's figure vanished down the hall, but his presence lingered. A question I couldn't answer, a mistake I couldn't unmake. Dawn broke over Arizona, the Airbnb's gloom, fading as we drove to the Grand Canyon, its promise of fire in my chest. Matt was alive, his Instagram story up, a canyon rim captioned "Edge of Forever." The single bed, the musty couch felt far away, but his grin in the car, too wide, kept my doubts alive. Focus on the hike, I told myself, the desert's red expanse unfolding, its heat a weight on my skin. The Grand Canyon was a marvel, its cliffs jagged, its depths endless, colors shifting under the sun, crimson, amber, shadow. We took the bright Angel Trail, its path steep, the air thick with dust. My legs burned, my breath short, but Matt was relentless, his step sure, his laughter a blade. "Push it," he called, his eyes distant, like he saw something I didn't. The canyon's silence was profound, broken only by our steps, the occasional hawk soaring above. I took photos, my phone a lifeline. Each shot a moment of awe tinged with unease. Phoenix's night called us back, its bars a blur of neon and noise. Matt led the charge, his energy a vortex, ordering drinks, spinning tales of past adventures. The first bar smelled of stale beer, its lights harsh, but Matt's charm pulled me in. His questions, my dreams, my fears, too deep, too fast. He's just open, I thought. But Tyler's warning echoed, a faint alarm. We drank, bar after bar, the world spinning, my senses drowning in music, heat, alcohol. Matt matched me, his control unnerving, his laughter a constant edge. We Ubered back, the Airbnb's dark shape looming, Matt playing loud music, the walls shaking. I collapsed on the couch, my phone falling, the night a heavy fog. The silence that followed was worse, a void where doubts grew, whispering that the canyon's beauty was a lie, that Matt's world was closing in. I woke in the Airbnb's living room, the pull-out couch creaking, my head a storm of pain. The night was thick, moonlight slicing through a cracked window, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. My throat was parched, my body heavy with last night's drinks, the house too still, its quiet a weight on my chest. Move, my mind urged, and I stumbled toward the bathroom. The floor icy, each step a battle against the dark. A sound stopped me, a snap like a floorboard under pressure. I froze, my heart racing, my eyes straining in the gloom. The living room was a maze of shapes, couch, table, lamp. But nothing stirred, the air electric with unseen eyes. Just the house, I lied, pushing forward, the bathroom's tiles cold, my reflection pale, unfamiliar. Halfway through, another sound, a faint click, like a door sealing shut. My hands shook, my pulse loud as I stepped into the hall. Matt's door was shut, its knob a dull gleam. I tried it, my fingers clumsy, but it was locked. "Matt?" I called, my voice thin, swallowed by the silence. No reply, just the weight of his Instagram story, night vibes, mocking me. I returned to the couch, the sheets damp, and lay down, the house alive with whispers, each one telling me I wasn't alone, that Matt's door hid something I couldn't face. The Arizona sun crept into the Airbnb, its light weak, the living room a mess of shadows and dust. My head throbbed. Last night's sounds, snap, click, clinging like a nightmare. I reached for my phone, expecting it by the couch, charging, but it was on the table, unplugged, its position wrong, deliberate. I didn't move it, I thought. My mind racing, the drunken haze, no excuse for this. Matt appeared, his grin forced, his eyes too alert. "Sleep okay?" he asked, his voice smooth, pouring coffee I hadn't seen him make. I mentioned the phone, watching him, but he shrugged. "You were wasted, probably left it there." His words were empty, a cover I didn't believe. My phone showed nothing odd, but the doubt from the canyon, the river, grew, a knot in my gut. We drove through Phoenix, its streets a blur, Matt suggesting the botanical gardens, their cacti stark under the sun. I wanted clarity, sobriety, but Matt pushed for drinks, his hand on my shoulder, heavy, familiar. "Just one," he said, and I gave in. Tyler's warning fading, the desert's heat blurring my resolve. But as night fell, I felt it. Matt's pull, his charm a trap, his questions a map of my life I hadn't meant to share. The final night was a haze of bars and bourbon, Matt's laughter a chain binding me to his rhythm. Our flight loomed, 1 p.m., but it felt far as we staggered into the Airbnb, the desert air sharp. Matt offered me the bed, his voice kind, his hand on my arm too long. "Your turn," he said, and I took it, too drunk to argue, dragging my bag to the room. The single bed, a cold altar. I closed the door, unlocked. Its lock too weak to matter. Sleep pulled me under, a heavy wave, but something snapped me awake. A shift, a presence. The room was dark, the outlet's glow faint, and my phone was gone, its cord limp dangling. Not again, I thought, panic surging, my hands searching in vain. Then I saw him, Matt, face down on the floor by the bed's far side, his body wrong. Too still. "What is he doing?" I screamed, my voice raw. "What are you doing?" He rose, his eyes dazed, his words a lie. "Got drunk, thought this was my bed." He was on the wrong side, his story broken. I accused him of taking my phone, my voice cracking. He knelt, found it under the bed, his grin false. "Here, bro." I stared, seeing a stranger, a predator. I took the couch, he insisted, but I locked the door, the night alive with fear, his shadow a threat I couldn't escape. I woke again, the locked door useless, the room a cage. At the bed's end, Matt stood, a silhouette, his stillness chilling. He sat, his hand on my foot, cold, intentional. "Get out!" I roared, shoving him, my scream a release of terror. He fell, silent, his eyes glinting, a hunter caught. I packed, my hands shaking, clothes and toiletries stuffed into my bag, my toothbrush lost in the chaos. Matt sat on the couch, upright, watching, his silence a weapon. The Airbnb's light warped his shadow, the walls closing in. I called an Uber, my voice unsteady, standing by the door, his gaze a weight. He didn't move, didn't speak, his presence a nightmare I couldn't wake from. The Uber took me to the airport, dawn breaking, the desert fading. I changed my seat, avoiding Matt, staring out the plane's window, his ghost in every reflection. Chicago welcomed me, but home felt fragile. The fear of Matt's touch, his stare, a stain I couldn't wash away. Back in Chicago I hid, the Arizona nightmare too raw to share. Work, silence, no bars, no Instagram. But Matt's profile called, his latest post a canyon captioned, "Live free." Its normalcy was a lie, chilling. Tyler broke my silence, his voice firm. He was trouble, he said, pointing out Matt's aloneness, his chance meetings tied to my stories. I dug into Matt's Instagram, an old post with friends, no tags. A commenter's name stood out. I DM'd him, my message trembling. His reply was swift. "Guy's a freak, get out." His story mirrored mine. Matt's charm, his invasions, his phone obsession. Others had fled him, a pattern of danger. "Should be locked up," he wrote, and the truth hit, cold, final. I blocked Matt, his number, his Instagram, But the fear stayed, a question burning. What did he want with my phone? The Grand Canyon, once a dream, was a scar, its depths hiding a truth I'd barely escaped, a shadow that lingered in my nights. Have you ever felt the pull of a summer night, promising freedom but hiding something sinister in its shadows? That's how it began for me, Kyle, in mid-July last year, when the Maryland heat wrapped my hometown in a haze of lazy days and restless nights. I was back from college, my dorm room a distant memory, craving the kind of reckless joy only old friends could bring. The air smelled of cut grass and asphalt, the kind that burns your souls if you linger too long. My phone buzzed with texts from Jason and Marcus, my high school brothers, the ones who knew me before life got complicated. We'd drifted since college, each at different schools, our paths rarely crossing. But summer was our chance to reclaim what we'd lost. We sat in Jason's backyard, the evening sun painting the sky in streaks of orange, sipping cheap beer from cans that sweated in our hands. The conversation turned to escape, away from jobs, classes, the grind. Ocean City, Jason said, his voice bright like he'd solved a puzzle. His family owned a modest beach house there, a 2-bedroom shack a few blocks from the sand, rarely used but perfect for us. Marcus grinned, his eyes glinting with the promise of boardwalks and waves. I felt it too, that spark of adventure, the kind that makes you forget the world's edges. Let's do it, my heart urged. And we planned a weekend trip. Just the three of us, like old times. The days before were a blur of packing, swim trunks, hoodies, a cooler for beers, and dreams of salty air. I posted a photo on Instagram, the three of us from a high school beach trip, captioned, "Round 2." But as I packed, a memory flickered, a story my cousin told about Ocean City, about strange figures on the beach at night, dismissed as local legend. Just stories, I thought, shoving it aside, the excitement drowning out the doubt. But the night before we left, the air felt heavier, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for us to step into something we couldn't undo. We hit Ocean City on a Friday afternoon, the Maryland sun blazing, the air thick with salt and sunscreen. Jason's beach house was a weathered box, its paint chipped, but it felt like home the moment we dropped our bags. The street hummed with tourists, kids clutching ice cream, radios blaring pop hits. My sneakers sank into the hot pavement as we walked to the boardwalk, the ocean's roar a constant pulse, its blue expanse glittering like a promise. I snapped a photo for Instagram, the three of us grinning against the waves, captioned "Summers, Ack." The memory of my cousin's beach story, a figure in the dark, flickered, but the daylight burned it away. The boardwalk was alive, a chaos of arcade lights, fried dough, and hawkers selling glow sticks. Marcus challenged Jason to a claw machine, their laughter sharp as they failed spectacularly. I leaned against a railing, the wood warm, watching families drag coolers, lifeguards barking at swimmers straying too far. It was perfect, the kind of day that made you forget time. We grabbed burgers at a shack, the grease dripping, the taste of summer in every bite. As the sun dipped, painting the sky pink, we headed back, our skins salty, our voices hoarse from shouting over the waves. At the house we cracked beers, the cans cold, and played drinking games, the kind that had us doubled over, spilling drinks, on the scratched table. The night felt endless, the windows open, the ocean's breath cooling the room. Marcus suggested a beach walk, his eyes glinting with mischief. "At night, it's different," he said, and I felt a pull, the same spark from our high school adventures. "Go for it," my mind urged, ignoring the faint unease, the story of shadows on the sand. We grabbed hoodies, Jason's flashlight, and headed out, the boardwalk's lights fading behind us, the night swallowing the day's warmth. The Ocean City. Beach at midnight was a different world, vast and empty. The waves a steady heartbeat under a moon half hidden by clouds. The sand was cool under my feet, the air sharp with salt carrying a chill that prickled my skin. Jason's flashlight cut a weak path, its beam dancing on the surf, barely touching the darkness beyond. We walked along the water's edge, the cold foam kissing my ankles, our laughter fading into the night's weight. Marcus told a story from high school, a prank gone wrong, and we chuckled. But the beach's silence pressed against us, demanding attention. Jason stopped, his voice low. "Is that someone out there? Look," my gut whispered, and I squinted into the dark, the shoreline a blur of shadows. At first nothing, just the endless black where sand met sea. Then I saw it, a figure, maybe 50 yards away, moving slowly along the water's edge. Its silhouette was stark, human but wrong, its steps stiff, mechanical, like a puppet pulled by unseen strings. Just a late walker, I thought, but my chest tightened, the air heavier now. Marcus whispered, "What's he doing?" His voice trembled, and I felt it too, a prickle of dread, the kind that tells you to run before you know why. We watched, frozen, the figure's head tilted down as if scanning the sand, its arms limp, unnatural. Jason joked, probably some drunk looking for keys, but his laugh was hollow, his flashlight shaking. Minutes passed and the figure stopped, now closer. 30 yards, maybe less. It stood still, too still, a statue carved from night. "Don't look at it," my mind urged. But I couldn't turn away, the silence screaming. Marcus muttered, "He's been there too long." Then Jason's voice dropped, chilling me. "Kyle, he's looking at you." What if fear was a signal telling you to flee before the darkness caught you? My heart slammed against my ribs, Jason's words. "He's looking at you," echoing like a curse. I laughed, nervous. "He's just staring at the sand." But Jason shook his head, his flashlight trembling. "No, Kyle, his head's tilted at you." Before I could argue, he flicked the light on, its beam slicing the dark, catching the figure for a heartbeat. "Run!" my body screamed, and I saw it. Grayish skin, shirtless, wet jeans clinging, arms dangling, head cocked at an angle that wasn't human, eyes wide, bulging, empty. The light flickered, dying, but that second was enough. The figure moved. No, it launched, sprinting at us with a speed that broke reality. Its limbs jerking, unnatural, like a machine gone wrong. We screamed, a raw animal sound, and bolted, sand flying under our feet, the ocean's roar drowning our panic. Marcus yelled, "Go!" Behind me, his voice cracking, my lungs burning as we ran, the boardwalk steps a distant goal. My hoodie felt heavy, the flashlight lost, the night a suffocating weight. We hit the steps, scrambling up, our breaths ragged, and stumbled onto the street, the lamps casting weak pools of light. I turned, expecting pursuit, but the beach was empty, the waves unbroken, no footprints in the sand. Where is he? My mind raced, the absence worse than the chase, like the night had swallowed him whole. We stood panting, the silence mocking, our eyes locked on the dark, waiting for a shadow that never came. We staggered back to the beach house, our steps heavy, the night's chill seeping into our bones. Inside, we locked every door, pulled the blinds, the house a fortress against the unseen. The living room smelled of stale beer, the table cluttered with cans, a cruel reminder of hours ago when the world made sense. We sat, silent, the ocean's hum through the walls a taunt. Jason tried to laugh, probably some cracked-out guy messing with us. but his eyes darted to the windows, his voice thin. Marcus nodded, but none of us believed it. The figure's speed, its stillness, wasn't human. We stayed up, the lamp's glow weak, our shadows sharp on the walls. I kept seeing those eyes, wide, unblinking, carved into my mind. It's over, I told myself, but the house felt alive, every creak a step, every gust a breath. We didn't sleep, didn't speak, just waited for dawn, its light a fragile promise. The next day we stayed inside. The beach's call silenced, our laughter gone. We left early, the drive back to Maryland quiet. The radio off. The figure's gaze a weight we couldn't shake. Back home I tried to move on, burying the beach. Routine, work, classes, normalcy. But the figure lingered, a shadow in my thoughts. Jason texted weeks later, his words a jolt. He was dreaming of it, the figure standing in his room, wet, head tilted, staring. Tell him, my mind urged, but I couldn't admit I saw it too. The same dream, the same pale form, its silence louder than any scream. Some nights I woke to the sound of wet steps in my hall, but the floor was dry, the house empty. Last week, nearly a year later, I scrolled a local Ocean City Facebook group, posts about festivals and lost pets. One photo stopped me. A blurry shot, night, a figure by the water, head down, posture wrong. The caption asked, "Who's this creepy guy at 1 a.m.? My blood ran cold. The comments worse. Dozens saw him, standing for hours, walking into the sea, never resurfacing. One mentioned wet footprints on their porch, no trail leading to or from them. It's real, I thought. The dreams, the figure, a truth too vast to hold. I'll never go back to that beach at night, but its shadow follows, a scar I can't escape." The Massachusetts coast was a living thing that evening, its humid air thick with the briny tang of seaweed and the faint burn of diesel. I was 19, my body aching from a dockboy shift, my hands rough with rope burns, my clothes heavy with the sea's salt. The New England town I called home buzzed with summer's pulse, kids weaving through streets on bikes, tourists snapping photos of lobster shacks, the harbor a canvas of gold and pink as the sun sank low. I stood by the docks, the wood warm under my sneakers, the water lapping softly. Each wave a whisper of escape from the day's grind. My phone lit up with texts, the group chat alive with plans. But I needed something raw, something real. I drove to the marina, the gravel crunching under my tires, to pick up Emerson, my brother in all but blood. His shift was ending. His fake ID, our key to freedom. We grabbed a case of beer, the bottles sweating in the humid dusk, their clink an anthem of youth as we tossed them in the back seat. The plan was pure. Take my family's boat, a beat-up cruiser I'd mastered years ago, out to a quiet bay, near the peninsula, drink under the stars and wait for the others to join. The harbor was a quiet haven as we shoved off, the engine's rumble blending with the sea's rhythm, the sky deepening to a bruised purple streaked with fire. We anchored in the bay, a local haunt where boats gathered like fireflies, their lights dancing across the water. Emerson and I sprawled on the bow, the deck cool against our backs, the beer sharp and cold, our laughter carrying over the waves. We swapped stories of high school, sneaking out, racing bikes, the thrill of breaking rules, the memories vivid, like we could step back into them. This is what summer's for, I thought. The boat's gentle rock a lullaby, the night hours to a ease. But as the horizon darkened, a dockhand's tale crept in. A story of a boat chase years back, whispered over late shifts, dismissed as legend. Just talk, I told myself, the beer softening the edges. but the water's surface caught the moonlight in strange, shifting patterns, like eyes watching from below. The other boat's lights flickered, some fading, and the bay felt larger, emptier. Its calm a mask for something stirring, something waiting to claim us. The bay held us, our boat a speck in the sea's vast embrace, the stars faint above a sky heavy with clouds. The beer warmed my blood, each sip blurring the world's edges. Our voices loud, carefree. The radio's soft rock died, leaving the waves' steady pulse, a rhythm too quiet, too deep. One boat motored away, its engine a fading drone, and another's lights went dark, the silence rushing in like a tide. I laughed, the beer bowled in my veins, shouting, "Crank the music!" Emerson joined, our yells defiant, but the night swallowed them, its quiet a weight that pressed against my chest. "Keep the party alive," my drunk mind urged, the bottles clinking, the air sharp with salt, the cold biting through my hoodie. Emerson stopped, his hand gripping his beer, his eyes fixed on the water. "Look," he said, his voice a blade, pointing. To a boat maybe 50 yards off, its outline faint against the sea's black. I turned, the darkness thick, my vision swimming, but there they were. 3 figures at the boat's edge, their silhouettes sharp, unmoving like shadows cast by a light we couldn't see. "Who's out this late?" My heart stumbled. The beers, warmth turning to ice. I forced a grin. Just some late-night weirdos, but Emerson's face was stone, his gaze locked on them, his unease a hook sinking into me. They stood, their stillness wrong, their gaze a pressure I felt in my bones. The beer fueled my nerve and I grabbed the megaphone, my voice slurred but loud. "Pay up to watch, boys," Emerson hissed. "Cut it out," his hand on my arm, but I shook him off, the silence mocking my bravado. Then it came, a laugh. Low, raspy, not human. A sound that crawled across the water, coiling around us. "Get out!" my instincts roared. But the boat's sway held me, a cruel comfort. The figure's unseen eyes burning, their intent a shadow growing sharper, pulling us into a trap we hadn't seen. The laugh lingered, a venomous thread weaving through. The night, freezing my blood. Emerson shot up, his voice raw. "We're leaving now." I laughed, the beer still fogging me. "They're just screwing around." But his eyes were wild, his hands tearing at the anchor chain, his panic a fire that sparked my own. The figures, 3 shadows, rigid, stood on their boat, its lights dim, their forms melting into the dark. "They're not right," I thought, my hands trembling. The megaphone slipping to the deck, the sea's calm a lie that shattered with each heartbeat. 2 splashes cut the silence, faint but sharp, from their boat's direction. My breath stopped, my eyes straining, seeing only one figure now. The others vanished, the water black, still, a void that hid their approach. "They're coming," Emerson whispered, the anchor halfway up, his movements desperate. I laughed, a reflex born of fear. "Swimming out here?" But the words choked as I heard it. Soft, steady splashes closing in, impossibly fast. "Start the engine," my mind screamed, and I lunged for the key. My fingers clumsy, the engine silent, the boat a cage in the dark. A hand broke the surface, pale, dripping, gripping the railing. Then another at the stern, fingers strong, deliberate, like they'd claimed us already. Emerson raised the anchor, his shout a plea, his face a mask of terror. I twisted the key, the engine roaring, and slammed the throttle, the boat lurching forward, crashing into a sandbar with a force that threw us. "Reverse," I gasped, my heart a drum pulling back. The boat grinding free, the hands gone. But the water's pulse carried their shadow, a threat that clung like damp air chasing us into the abyss. The boat surged, the sandbar fading, the engines scream a cry in the night. My hands locked on the wheel, slick with sweat. Emerson beside me, his breath jagged, his eyes scanning the black. "They're not done," he said, pointing to lights on the horizon. A boat cutting through the waves, its bow ablade. Too fast, too near. Go. My heart pounded. The throttle maxed, our cruiser shaking. The harbor's distant lights a faint. Hope, too far, too fragile. The other boat closed, its engine a snarl, its lights a glare that burned my eyes, the waves churning in its wake. Emerson shouted, "What do they want?" But I had nothing, only fear. The sea's depths a vault for their intent, steal the boat, take us something darker. Don't look back, I told myself. But the boat was close, its shadow stretching. The dock's outline sharpening, but not enough. I swerved left, the shore dangerously near, the hull grazing shallows, a desperate bid to lose them. The water's cold spray stinging my face. They veered off, their lights dimming, the chase broken, a mercy I didn't trust. We hit the dock, the wood groaning, the boat untouched, a miracle I didn't deserve. We tied up, our hands shaking, the night silent, the harbor's calm a lie that mocked our fear. The laugh echoed, a scar in my mind, the sea's whisper a warning that we'd escaped. But the night hadn't forgotten us, its eyes still watching from the deep. We staggered onto the dock, the planks icy under my feet, the harbor's lights too harsh, too real after the dark. My legs buckled, the beer's haze gone, replaced by a clarity that hurt. Each breath a reminder of how close we'd come. We found our friends later, the story spilling out, their faces a mix of awe and disbelief. They were after the boat, one said, but the words rang false, too clean for the laugh. The hands, the chase's raw malice, or our wallets. Another offered, but we shook our heads, the truth too vast, too wrong to pin down. Emerson's instincts were our lifeline, his fear a truth I'd mocked, his quick hands a debt I couldn't repay. I'm sorry, I thought. The guilt a stone in my chest, my recklessness a lesson burned into me. The boat wasn't local, its crew a mystery, their motives a void that haunted me. What if they'd caught us? The question was a shadow, darkening the summer, the harbor's peace a fragile mask over what lurked below. I haven't sailed at night since, but the sea's call lingers, a whisper in my dreams, a warning I carry, a truth I'll never unlearn. The air felt heavy that night, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to shatter. I was 16, lying in bed, when a faint tap, tap, tap echoed against my window pane. My heart froze. Through the glass, a shadow loomed, a familiar face twisted by darkness whispering my name. Luke, the quiet kid from school, the one I'd failed to save. And he was here to confess something unthinkable. In a small, sleepy town where the days bled into one another, my high school stood like a relic of forgotten dreams. It wasn't the kind of place you'd see on TV, with sprawling suburbs and polished hallways. No, this was rural, raw, and quiet. Fields stretching endlessly beyond the school's chipped brick walls. Our graduating class barely scraped 200 souls, small enough that every face was familiar, even if you didn't trade secrets with them. You'd pass someone in the hall, nod, and know their name without trying. It was that kind of place. Safe, predictable, or so I thought. The kind of town where the biggest scandal was a cow wandering onto the football field during practice. After school, we'd kick up dust on our bikes or toss a ball until the sun sank below the horizon. This was 17 years ago, before phones, glued kids to screens before the world felt like it was always one step from breaking. What set our school apart, I always thought, was how little cruelty there was. No jocks shoving nerds into lockers, no mean girls stealing lunch money, Sure, kids teased each other, harmless jabs that faded by the next period. But real bullying? I couldn't name a single kid who fit that mold. Not one. The quiet ones, the loud ones, the weird ones, they all coexisted in this fragile bubble of peace. But bubbles burst. There was one kid, though, who stood apart, like a ghost drifting through our halls. Luke. That's what I'll call him. Not strange-looking, not awkward in some obvious way, just silent. A boy who seemed to carry an invisible weight, his eyes always fixed on some distant point no one else could see. He wasn't unfriendly. If you spoke to him, he'd nod, maybe even smile. But he never started the conversation. Never raised his hand in class, never laughed. In a school where everyone knew everyone, Luke was a shadow we all saw but never truly noticed. I shared one class with him, a computer elective that mixed kids from every grade. Picture a room frozen in time, bulky humming box computers, their screens casting a sickly green glow. The room was split by a central aisle, 2 columns of tables, 4 rows each, 4 seats per row. 32 seats total, but only 26 were filled. Luke always claimed the second row, far left, alone by the window. No one sat next to him, not out of malice, but because everyone else gravitated toward friends. I'd see him there, hunched over his keyboard, his fingers moving deliberately like he was decoding some secret only he understood. Did you ever notice how silence can feel louder than noise? Luke's silence was like that, a presence that pressed against the air, unnoticed until it was too late. The trouble started a few weeks into the semester. The seniors in the class, a tight-knit pack of loudmouths, turned their attention to Luke. It began with whispers, snickers behind his, "What's with the mute kid?" one would mutter, loud enough for the room to hear. "Bet he's plotting something creepy." The teacher, a tired man with a voice too soft to command respect, never intervened. He'd shuffle papers or stare at his screen, pretending not to notice. The seniors fed on that weakness. Their jokes grew sharper, crueler. Have you ever watched a spark catch fire? That's what it was like. A small piece of paper sailed through the air one day, landing against the back of Luke's head. He froze, then turned, his eyes a storm of hurt and fury. "Wasn't me," one senior smirked, pointing to another. The others laughed, a sound that felt like glass shattering. Luke's face, God, I'll never forget it. Sadness, yes, but something darker too. A crack in the mask he wore. I wanted to say something, to stand up, but I didn't. I just watched, like a coward, as the spark became a flame. It got worse. The seniors' taunts turned physical, flicking pens at him, accidentally bumping his chair. Luke never fought back. He'd just sit there, his shoulders curling inward like he was trying to disappear. One day I saw him after school, sitting on a curb near the parking lot. His head was bowed, his hands clasped tightly, as if holding himself together. Most kids live too far to walk home. This was the kind of place where you needed a car or a bus. I had my license early, a perk of an autumn birthday, so I was driving by then. Something in me stirred. What's it like to be truly alone? I slowed my car, rolled down the window. "Hey, Luke," I said, my voice louder than I meant. "Need a ride?" His head snapped up, and for a moment, his eyes lit with something like hope. He nodded, climbed in, and we drove. That 10-minute ride felt like a lifetime. Luke's house was a modest place, tucked down a winding road. We talked, or rather, I talked, and he answered in short, careful sentences. I told him to ignore the seniors, called them losers who'd peak in high school. He stared out the window, then said, "It's not just them." His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Other classes, too. People They don't stop. My stomach twisted. I hadn't known. Hadn't wanted to know. I tried to lighten the mood, mentioned how close our houses were. My place was just a few streets over near the old deli. He nodded, said thanks, and slipped out of the car. As he walked up his driveway, I felt a pang of guilt. Why didn't I do more? After that, we'd nod to each other in class, a quiet acknowledgement. But when the seniors started up again, I stayed silent. I told myself it wasn't my fight. I was wrong. Then came the day everything changed. Fourth period, computer, class. Luke wasn't there. His seat by the window sat empty, the monitor dark. I didn't think much of it, maybe he was sick. But seventh period, English class, the world turned upside down. The loudspeaker crackled, and a voice, sharp, urgent, cut through the room. Lockdown. This is not a drill. The words hit like a fist. My classmates froze, eyes wide, as our teacher, a woman usually so composed, fumbled to lock the door. She flicked off the lights, her hands trembling, and hissed for us to crowd into the corner. Have you ever felt time slow to a crawl? We huddled, there, knees pressed to chests, the air thick with fear. Our teacher's face, pale, lips tight, scared me more than the announcement. She kept glancing at the door, her phone clutched like a lifeline. No one spoke. No one dared. Minutes dragged like hours. 20, maybe 30 before the loudspeaker hummed again. The principal's voice, steady but strained, explained. Someone in a mask, carrying a black duffel bag, had tried to enter the school. Security spotted them, locked the doors, called the police. A duffel bag. The words lodged in my throat. What was inside? Guns. Worse? The school day ended early, police cars circling the lot like vultures. I drove a few friends home, their voices a blur of nervous chatter. That night I tried to sleep, but the day clung to me, heavy and wrong. And then it happened. A soft tap, tap, tap at my window. My eyes snapped open. The room was dark, the clock glowing 2 a.m. Another tap. I sat up, heart pounding, and peered through the glass. A figure stood outside, half lit by moonlight. Luke. His face was pale, his eyes hollow, like he'd seen something that broke him. I cracked the window, my voice shaking. Luke, what are you doing here? He leaned closer, his breath fogging. The glass. I tried to do something bad, he said, his voice barely audible. The world tilted. I didn't want to know, but I had to. Was it you? I asked. The lockdown? He nodded, slow, deliberate. My blood ran cold. He'd found my house, he said, because I'd mentioned the deli. He'd biked through the streets, searching for my car. He'd been watching. I couldn't let him in. Couldn't hear the details of what he'd planned. You need to turn yourself in, I told him, my voice firm despite the fear. He begged to talk, to explain, but I shouted for my dad. Footsteps thudded outside and Luke vanished into the night. I woke my parents, my words tumbling out. My mom called the police, her face ashen. An officer arrived, and I told him everything. Luke's confession, the lockdown, the duffel bag. They already knew about the incident, but my story gave them a name. They went to Luke's house, but he wasn't there. The next day, he either returned or was found. I never got the full story. He confessed, was charged with making a terroristic threat and served time. I don't know where he is now, whether he's still out there, carrying that same invisible weight. Part of me wants to believe he's okay. Part of me feels guilty, knowing my one act of kindness, offering that ride, drew him to me that night. But the truth haunts me. Luke brought a gun to school, masked, ready. I don't believe he just wanted to scare people. For a moment he had a plan, a dark, terrible plan. And then he stopped. But what if he hadn't? It was just another school day, the kind where you doodle in your notebook and wait for the bell. But then she screamed, "There's a clown outside!" My eyes snapped to the window, and there he was. Red and yellow rags, white painted face, grinning like a nightmare come to life. He wasn't just standing there, he was watching us, watching me, and he wouldn't stop. The year was 2016, and the world felt like it was unraveling. I was 11, a fifth grader in a quiet suburban town where nothing ever happened. Our elementary school sat nestled between tidy lawns and cul-de-sacs, the kind of place where the biggest drama was a lost soccer ball. But that fall, something sinister crept into our lives. Have you ever felt the air change like it's warning you? The news was buzzing with stories of clowns, creepy, twisted figures popping up across the country. They'd lurk in parking. Lots hide in woods, their painted faces grinning under streetlights. Adults called it a prank, a silly trend. To us kids, it was a nightmare. Social media whispered of killer clowns, and every shadow seemed to hide one. At school, we'd huddle at recess, swapping rumors, our voices trembling with the thrill of fear. That day started like any other. It was early afternoon, maybe 1 o'clock, the sun spilling through the classroom windows. Our room was a cozy chaos of posters and crayon drawings, the air thick with the scent of pencil shavings. We were working on some assignment, fractions. I think, our heads bowed, the room quiet save for the scratch of pencils and a few hushed giggles. Normal, safe. Then a girl's voice shattered the calm. "There's a clown outside." Her words were a high-pitched stab cutting through the room. Heads whipped toward the windows. I froze, my pencil hovering, as my eyes locked onto the glass. He was there, a clown, standing just feet from the window, staring straight into our classroom. His suit was a tattered mess of red and yellow, streaked with dirt, like it had been dragged through mud. His face was a mask of white paint, black smudges circling his eyes, and his lips, his lips curved into a wide, unnatural grin that didn't reach his eyes. Those eyes were empty, like pits swallowing the light. Some kids laughed, nervous and unsure, thinking it was a joke. Others shrank back, their faces pale. I couldn't move. Have you ever seen something that feels wrong? Like it doesn't belong in the world? The clown didn't flinch. He just stood there, his grin fixed, his body unnaturally still. Then slowly he raised a gloved hand and waved. Not a friendly wave, but a deliberate, taunting motion, like he was beckoning us closer. My stomach churned. The room buzzed with whispers. Is he real? What's he doing? But I couldn't tear my eyes away. His gaze felt personal, like he saw me, not just the class. Like he knew me. Our teacher, Mrs. Riker, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, strode to the window. She squinted at the clown, her lips tightening. "Excuse me," she called through the glass, her voice loud and edged with irritation. "Classes are in session. You need to leave, now." The clown didn't blink, didn't move. His hand kept waving, slow and mechanical, his grin unwavering. Mrs. Riker's face hardened. She turned to us, her voice sharp. "Everyone sit down, now." We obeyed, but our eyes stayed glued to the window. She grabbed the classroom phone, a clunky corded thing by the door, and stepped into the hallway, her voice muffled but urgent. The air felt wrong now, heavy, like a storm was coming. She returned moments later, hung up and marched to the windows. With quick, angry tugs, she yanked the blinds shut, blocking the clown from view. But I could still feel him out there, his presence pressing against the glass. Barely 2 minutes passed before the loudspeaker crackled. The principal's voice boomed, urgent but controlled. "Staff, initiate lockdown formation. Now." The words hit like a slap. Mrs. Riker moved fast, flicking off the lights and locking the door. "Under your desks," she hissed, her voice low but trembling. We scrambled, crawling beneath the tables, our knees scraping the cold tile. Some kids giggled, thinking it was a game. Others, like me, felt the fear settle in, heavy and real. What was he doing out there? The room was dark now, the blinds casting slivers of light across the floor. We sat in silence, the only sound our shallow breaths. My heart pounded, each beat loud in my ears. I kept picturing that grin, those empty eyes. Was he still there, staring at the blinds? Or was he closer now, circling the building, looking for a way in? Time stretched, each second an eternity. 30 minutes, maybe more. We crouched there, the silence suffocating. My legs cramped, but I didn't dare move. Have you ever waited for something terrible, knowing it's coming? Finally, the loudspeaker hummed again. The principal's voice, calmer now, announced the lockdown was over. "The situation has been handled," he said. Handled. That was all. We crawled out, blinking in the dim light, our faces a mix of relief and confusion. Mrs. Riker opened the blinds, but the clown was gone. Security had checked the grounds, found nothing. Classes resumed, but the air felt wrong, like the world had shifted. We whispered about it at our desks, our voices low, afraid to say too much. The teachers said nothing, their faces tight, urging us to focus. Dismissal came, and I walked home with my friend Chris, our sneakers scuffing the sidewalk. Our neighborhood was a short trek from school, all neat houses and trimmed hedges. We tried to laugh it off, joking about the clown, but our voices were hollow. Something wasn't right. As we passed the school's back fence, a scream tore through the air. 2 fifth-grade girls sprinted past us, their faces white with panic. "There's someone in the woods!" one gasped. My blood ran cold. Behind the school was a thin strip of trees, not a forest, just enough to shield the street beyond. Chris. And I turned, our eyes scanning the shadows. There he was, the clown, half hidden among the trees, his dirty suit blending with the dusk. That same grin, that same wave. Slow, deliberate, aimed at the girls who'd just run by. He wasn't just standing there. He was beckoning, his hand curling like a trap. Chris grabbed my arm. "Run," he whispered. We didn't look back. Our feet pounded the pavement, our breaths ragged, until we reached my house. I burst through the door, my voice shaking as I told my parents everything. They called the school, their faces grim. Later, a friend said the police had patrolled the area, found no one. No footprints, no trace. But he was there. I saw him. We all did. To this day, no one knows who he was, why he came, or what he wanted. Was he just a prankster, feeding on our fear? Or was he something worse, waiting in those woods for a moment that never came? What haunts me most isn't the clown's face. It's that he came back. After the lockdown, after the police, he was still there, watching, waving, grinning. And I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there somewhere, waiting for me. My window rattled in the dead of night. A soft tap-tap that yanked me from sleep. I squinted into the dark, and there he was, Luke, his pale face glowing under the moonlight, eyes like voids. "I did something bad," he whispered, his voice slicing through the silence. The boy I barely knew, the one I failed to help, had come to confess a secret that would haunt me forever. 17 years ago, my world was a small, sleepy town where time seemed to pause. Our high school, a weathered brick building at the edge of endless fields, held fewer than 200 kids in my class. It wasn't like the schools you see in movies with crowded halls and cliques. Here you knew every face, every name, even if you didn't share secrets. It felt safe. We'd ride bikes through dusty trails after school, play pickup games until the stars came out. No scandals, no headlines, just quiet days blending into quiet nights. But beneath that calm, something waited, like a shadow you only notice when moves. Our school felt different, almost untouched by cruelty. No bullies shoving kids into lockers, no stolen lunch money. Teasing happened, sure, but it was light, forgotten by the bell, or so I thought. Among us was Luke, a junior like me, but a ghost in the crowd. He wasn't odd-looking, just quiet, carrying a stillness that felt heavier than silence. His eyes, always fixed somewhere far away, held a story no one bothered to read. If you spoke to him, he'd nod, maybe smile, but he never spoke first. In a place where everyone belonged, Luke was a shadow we passed without seeing. We shared a computer class, a mix of grades in a room stuck in the past. Bulky monitors hummed, casting a sickly glow across rows of tables. Luke sat alone, second row, left side, by the window, his fingers tapping the keyboard with purpose. Have you ever felt someone's silence scream louder than words? The rest of us paired off with friends, but Luke stayed apart, a solitary figure in a crowded room. I noticed him but never reached out. Not yet. Then the seniors turned on him. It started small, whispers, smirks. "What's with the quiet kid?" they'd say, loud enough for him to hear. The teacher, a tired man with no spine, ignored it, his eyes glued to his desk. A spark can start a fire. The taunts grew crueler. One day a paper ball flew, hitting Luke's head. He turned, his face a mix of hurt and rage. "Not me," a senior laughed, pointing elsewhere. The others joined in, their laughter sharp, cutting. Luke's eyes burned, a crack in his calm. I saw it, felt it, but stayed silent, my cowardice a weight I still carry. I saw Luke after school one day, sitting on a curb, head bowed. Most kids needed rides. Our town was too spread out to walk. I'd gotten my license early, so I pulled over. "Hey, Luke," I called. "Need a lift?" His eyes lit up, a flicker of warmth. He nodded, and we drove. 10 minutes to his house, a small place down a quiet road. I told him to ignore the seniors, called them deadbeats. He stared out the window, then said, "It's not just them. It's everywhere." My heart sank. I hadn't known. We talked a little more, and I mentioned living near the old deli. Why didn't I do more? One day, Luke wasn't in class. His seat was empty, the monitor dark. I shrugged it off. Maybe he was sick. But 7th period, English, everything changed. The loudspeaker crackled. "Lockdown, this is not a drill." The words hit like ice. Our teacher, usually calm, locked the door, her hands shaking. "Corner now," she whispered, flicking off the lights. We huddled, hearts pounding, the air thick with fear. Time slowed. Her pale face scared me more than the words. We waited, silent, for what felt like forever. The principal's voice returned, tense. Someone in a mask with a duffel bag had tried to enter. Security locked the doors, police came. A duffel bag. What was inside? The day ended early, cop cars everywhere. That night, I couldn't sleep. Then it came. A tap at my window. I bolted, upright, heart racing. Through the glass, Luke's face pale and hollow. "I tried something bad," he said, his voice a blade. It was him. He'd found my house, remembered the deli, biked through the night. I couldn't let him in. "Was it you?" I asked. He nodded. "Go to the school," I urged. "Confess." He begged to talk, but I called for my dad. He fled. My parents called the police. I told them everything. Luke, the lockdown, his confession. They went to his house, but he was gone. The next day, he was found, confessed, charged with a terroristic threat. He served time. I don't know where he is now. Part of me hopes he's gay. But the truth lingers. He brought a gun masked to school, not just to scare. For a moment he meant it. And I'll never forget that whisper at my window. 3 soft knocks echoed through our classroom, each one a pulse in the dark. "This is just a drill," a man's voice called from the other side, calm but wrong. My heart stopped. We were in lockdown, lights off, huddled in fear. That voice wasn't our teacher's. It wasn't anyone we knew. And then the doorknob turned, slow and deliberate, like a predator testing its cage. I was a freshman, barely 14, navigating the chaos of high school in a suburban town so average it could have been anywhere. Our school was nothing special, squat. Brick buildings, scuffed hallways, and a parking lot that smelled of asphalt and teenage dreams. It felt like any other Wednesday. 4th period was Earth Science with Mrs. Chen, a strict but fair teacher who always wore her hair in a tight bun. We'd just finished a pop quiz, the kind that left your brain buzzing with facts about tectonic plates. I was shoving my notebook into my backpack, the room alive with the rustle of papers and low chatter, when the loudspeaker crackled. Everything changed in a heartbeat. The principal's voice, usually bored, cut through. "This is a lockdown. Lock all doors, lights off, stay quiet." No one panicked at first. We'd done drills before, maybe twice a semester. Just another routine. Right? Mrs. Chen sighed, like this was an inconvenience, and glided to the door. The lock clicked, the lights went out, and she waved us to the corner farthest from the entrance. Have you ever noticed how darkness changes a room? We shuffled over, giggling, nervously, whispering about how this was probably nothing. I crouched next to my friend Sarah, our knees brushing the cold tile. The classroom felt smaller now, the air heavier, like it was pressing us down. Mrs. Chen stood by the door, her silhouette sharp against the faint glow seeping through the blinds. We waited, expecting the all clear any second. But then it came. A second announcement, the same voice, but rushed, almost trembling. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The giggles stopped. The whispers died. My stomach twisted, a cold knot forming. Sarah grabbed my hand, her fingers. Mrs. Chen's face, usually so composed, tightened. She checked her phone, her thumb scrolling fast, and I heard it. Faint police sirens outside, growing louder. Silence settled, thick and suffocating. Minutes passed, each one stretching into forever. Then, from the hallway, came the sound. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, not the hurried stride of a teacher or the heavy boots of a cop. Just one person, walking with purpose. They stopped right outside our door. Have you ever held your breath so long it hurts? We all stared at the door, its small glass window dark, unyielding. No one moved. Then it came. 3 soft knocks. Not loud, not frantic, just patient. My heart pounded loud in my ears. The doorknob turned, slow, testing. It didn't open. The lock held. But it turned again, back and forth, like whoever was out there was teasing us. And then the voice. "This is just a drill," a man said, his tone calm, almost soothing. "You can open the door now." My eyes flicked to Mrs. Chen. Her face was stone, but her finger pressed to her lips, shaking her head no. We knew. That voice wasn't the principal's. It wasn't anyone's we recognized. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. The voice repeating, "Hello? It's just a drill." Each word felt like a lie, wrapping around us like smoke. Sarah's nails dug into my palm. I couldn't breathe. What did he want? Our classroom was on the first floor, science wing, the windows facing a courtyard. If he got in, I pushed the thought away. The knocking stopped, sudden and eerie, leaving only silence. We waited, frozen, for what felt like hours. Then a scream, a girl's voice, sharp and raw, echoing from down the hall. Just one, then nothing. The air turned to glass. A few kids whimpered, their sobs muffled. Someone whispered they saw a shadow pass the door's window, quick and gone. Mrs. Chen shushed us, her voice barely audible but fierce. My legs cramped, my back ached, but I didn't dare move. The sirens outside grew louder, closer, a lifeline. We couldn't reach. Time dragged, maybe 10 minutes, maybe more. Then voices shouting, authoritative, police. Stay in place, they called, their boots pounding the hall. They moved room to room, their commands sharp. When they reached our door, they knocked, hard, official, and unlocked it with a key. Mrs. Chen didn't move until they showed badges, their flashlights cutting the dark. It's over, one said, his voice gruff but kind. We stood, legs shaking, and filed out in a line, passing other classes doing the same. Outside, the parking lot was a sea of cop cars, their lights flashing red and blue. A SWAT van loomed near the entrance, its presence heavy. I saw him. One officer led a man in cuffs from the building. He wasn't a student, maybe 30, pale, long dark hair, dressed in black. His eyes scanned the crowd, empty, like he was somewhere else. I looked away, my skin crawling. Later we learned he'd slipped in through a side door during a delivery, right by the science wing. They called him mentally unstable, said he had something in his backpack, but no one told us what. A weapon? A threat? They said no one was hurt, that it was under control. But it didn't feel that way. Not when I closed my eyes and heard those knocks, that voice, that scream. It felt like the world had cracked. I'm 21 now, and I still check my doors at night. I still listen for footsteps in the quiet. That day, something broke. Not just in me, but in all of us. We were kids thinking drills were games, but that voice, that doorknob turning, it was real. And it's never left me. The classroom went dark and we crammed into a closet, our breaths loud in the stillness. Sirens wailed outside, sharp and real, not a drill. I was 15, barely a sophomore, and the world I knew was unraveling. Somewhere in our school, blood was spilling, and all I could do was wait, trapped in the quiet, wondering who wouldn't make it out alive. I was 15, a sophomore at Northside High School in Jacksonville, North Carolina, still finding my place in a world of cliques and chaos. It was early morning, the sky a soft gray as I trudged to school, arriving at 6:55 a.m. Everything felt normal. The fine arts hallway, where my first period chorus class met, was quiet, save for the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Our classroom sat at the hall's end next to the auditorium, its walls plastered with music posters and faded show programs. I claimed my usual seat, plugged in my earbuds, and let the music drown out the world. Have you ever felt safe, only to realize it's a lie? A few classmates trickled in, their voices a low murmur. But I stayed in my bubble, waiting for the bell to start the day. The teacher's voice cut through my music. I paused my playlist, yanked out my earbuds, and looked up. Kids were moving, fast, toward the closet at the back of the room. Confusion hit first. We'd done a lockdown drill the day before, a routine thing, crouch, wait, move on. Was this another? My teacher's face, usually warm, was tight, her eyes darting to the door. "Now," she said, her voice low but firm. I followed, squeezing, into the closet with 20 others, our bodies pressed close in the dark. The door shut, the lights went out, and a thin sliver of light crept under the frame. The air changed. No one spoke. My knees pressed against the cold floor, my backpack digging into my spine. I tried to stay calm, to think this was just practice. Then I heard it, sirens sharp and relentless slicing through the morning. This was real. We sat in that closet, the darkness heavy, for what felt like forever. Nearly 2 hours later, I'd learn. Have you ever counted your breaths to keep from breaking? My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay steady, to not let the fear win. The closet smelled of dust and sweat, the air thick with our silent panic. Some kids shifted, their shoes scuffing softly. Others held still, like statues, afraid to make a sound. I strained to hear anything, footsteps, voices, anything, but there was only the distant wail of sirens growing louder, then fading, then loud again. My mind raced. Was someone out there? Was it a fight, a weapon, something worse? The drill yesterday had felt like a game. This felt like a nightmare, one I couldn't wake from. Finally, the teacher cracked the door, her face pale but composed. "It's over," she said. And we stumbled out, blinking in the dim classroom light. My legs ached, my hands shook, but relief flooded me. We were okay. I returned to my seat, slipped my earbuds back in, trying to anchor myself to something normal. But the air felt wrong, charged with a tension no one named. At my desk, I asked the teacher, was there a fight? Her eyes met mine, heavy with something I didn't understand. "It's much worse," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The world tilted. I glanced out the window, saw cars lined up behind the school. Not the usual pickup line, but a chaotic mass, parents desperate to reach their kids. Whispers spread. My friend Jacob, who always seemed to know things, leaned over. "Someone got stabbed," he said, his voice low. "In the rotunda." The rotunda was the heart of our school, a wide open space where kids crossed paths between classes. Blood in the rotunda. My stomach churned. My phone buzzed. Mom texting. "Are you okay?" I replied. "Safe, in choir." But my fingers trembled. Some girls in class started crying, their sobs sharp in the quiet. Mom called, her voice shaking. She was at the baseball field, parked with other parents, all waiting to see their kids. When my name was called, I grabbed my bag and ran. The school a blur of faces and fear. At the field, Mom's arms wrapped around me, her face wet with tears. I broke then, the weight of the morning crashing down. We drove to her daycare job, found a quiet room and cried together, her co-workers hovering with soft words. I needed to escape. Outside, I plugged in my earbuds, let 3 days' grace drown out the world and tried to breathe. Later, we learned the truth. 2 students were hospitalized. Whitney boy I didn't know died. A teacher was slashed, her arm bloodied but alive. 3 people hurt, 1 gone forever. A life gone in the rotunda. The details came fast. A 16-year-old was charged. Voluntary manslaughter, assault with a deadly weapon, a list of crimes that felt too big for a kid. 2 others, 15 and 16, faced charges for assault and disorderly conduct. Then the worst part, someone recorded it. A Snapchat video, shared like a trophy, showed the chaos, screams, running feet. A phone pointed at the ground as blood pooled. I didn't watch it. Mom did, and her voice broke, telling me. "You could hear them," she said, "the kids screaming." She thought it was gang-related, a feud that spilled into our halls. Gangs, here? The idea sank into me, heavy and cold. What if they came back? What if this wasn't the end? I'm still haunted by that day, the boy who died. I didn't know him, but his absence lingers, a hole in the world. I see the rotunda in my dreams, empty but stained. I hear the sirens, feel the closets dark. What if it happens again? Northside High was supposed to be my place, my start. Now it's a memory of loss, of fear that clings like damp air. I hope he rests in peace, that boy I never met. But peace feels far away. When you're 15 and the world you trusted breaks. It was as if the sky had torn itself open, spilling an endless flood that drowned the world in shadow. I was just a kid, barely tall enough to reach the kitchen counter, maybe second or third grade. My memories blurred like rain streaking down a window. But this night clawed its way into my mind, sharp and unyielding, a wound that never healed. The rain didn't just fall, it roared, a relentless beast hammering the roof, the windows, the earth itself. I stood at the living room window, my small hands pressed against the glass, watching rivers form in the street, wondering if the world would wash away. My parents were supposed to be home. They'd picked me up from school, their faces tight, with worry as the storm worsened, then left for some fancy event. A fundraiser, a dinner I couldn't recall. All I knew was they weren't coming back tonight. They called me on the house phone, their voices crackling through the storm's static. Mom's tone was heavy with guilt, apologizing over and over, as if leaving me alone was a crime. Dad chimed in, promising they'd be back by morning. The storm had turned the roads into death traps, and they were staying at a friend's house closer to the event. I told them I was fine, my voice brave but my heart unsteady. Mom gave me a list. Lock every door, every window, keep a light on, close the blinds. Her words felt like a spell, a fragile shield against the dark. I didn't understand why they were so worried. To me, being alone was an adventure. Candy without limits, no bedtime, the house all mine. But as I hung up the phone, the rain's roar grew louder and the house felt too big, too empty, too cold. Something was watching me, waiting, just beyond the glass. I told myself I was king of this castle, but the castle felt like a cage. The living room was my throne room, the TV flickering with cartoons I barely watched, their colors bleeding into the dim glow of a single lamp. I'd raided the kitchen, my hands sticky with candy wrappers, the sugar buzzing in my veins like a storm of its own. No bedtime, no rules, just me and the endless night. Mom's list echoed in my head, but I pushed it away. Lock the doors, close the blinds. Why bother? I was invincible, or so I thought, sprawled on the couch, the rain's rhythm lulling me into a false sense of safety. The house groaned under the storm's weight, its walls creaking like an old ship lost at sea. I didn't notice how the air grew heavier, how the shadows in the corners seemed to shift. Watching, waiting. Hours slipped by, and the sugar high faded, leaving me heavy, my eyelids drooping. I didn't mean to fall asleep, but the couch swallowed, whole, the TV's hum fading into a distant hum. When you're a kid, you don't think about danger. You don't think about what's outside or what's already inside. I dreamed of rain. Endless rain pouring through the ceiling, filling the house until I was drowning, my hands clawing at the surface. But it wasn't the dream that woke me. It was the cold, a bone-deep chill that sank into my skin, sharper than any night I'd ever known. The TV had gone dark, its screen a lifeless mirror reflecting the room's emptiness. I sat up, my breath visible in the faint light, and realized the house wasn't just quiet. It was wrong. The storm raged. On outside, but inside, something else was stirring. Something that didn't belong. I wasn't alone anymore. The cold wasn't just air. It was alive, wrapping around me like a second skin. I shivered, pulling the thin blanket tighter, my eyes darting across the living room. The storm screamed outside, rain lashing the windows, like 1,000 tiny fists, but inside, the silence was worse. It pressed against my ears, thick and unnatural, broken only by the faint drip of water somewhere in the house. I didn't know where it came from, but each drop felt like a countdown. "You need to move," I told myself, Mom's list flashing in my mind like a warning. I'd ignored it too long, and now the house felt like it was punishing me, its walls leaning, in its shadows stretching too far. I forced myself off the couch, my bare feet flinching against the icy floor. The front door was first, locked, but the bolt felt loose as if someone had tested it. The back door was the same, its handle slick with condensation, or maybe something worse. I checked every window, my fingers trembling as I tugged at the latches, half expecting to see a face pressed against the glass. Everything was sealed, yet the cold grew sharper, sinking into my bones. "It's just the storm," I whispered. But my voice sounded small, swallowed by the house's vast emptiness. I pressed my hand against a window, the glass so cold it burned, but it was shut tight. The heater must have died, I thought, clinging to logic like a lifeline. But deep down, I knew it wasn't the heater. Something was wrong. Something inside. The air felt heavy, like it was watching me, waiting for me to notice. "You're not alone," the cold seemed to whisper, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd already let something in. I climbed the stairs, each step a betrayal, the house groaning as if it wanted to keep me downstairs. My bedroom waited at the end of the hall, its door half open, a black void swallowing the faint light from below. The storm was louder up here, rain battering the roof like it was trying to claw its way inside. I paused at my door, my hand hovering over the knob, my heart thudding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. "Just go to bed," I told myself, but the cold followed me, curling around my ankles like invisible hands. I stepped inside and the room felt wrong, too big, too dark, the air thick with something I couldn't name. My bed was a small island in the chaos, its blankets tangled from restless nights. I crawled in, pulling the covers to my chin, but sleep wouldn't come. The storm raged on, lightning flashing through the big window, turning the room into a flickering nightmare. Thunder followed, so loud it shook the walls, but it wasn't the storm keeping me awake. There was something else. A sound, faint at first, like wood shifting under weight, but it wasn't the floor. My room was carpeted. It came from somewhere deeper, somewhere inside the house. I held my breath, straining to hear over the rain's roar. There it was again. A slow, deliberate creak, like someone testing their weight on an old board. "It's just the storm," I lied to myself, but the sound grew sharper, closer, rhythmic. I sat up, my eyes scanning the dark, the lightning's brief glow revealing nothing but shadows. Then I saw it, the closet door, its edge glinting in the dark, slightly ajar. I'd closed it. I knew I'd closed it. Something was in there, watching, waiting, and the air turned to ice in my lungs. My heart stopped, but my body moved, driven by a fear older than time. The closet door wasn't just open, it was a wound in the dark, a gateway to something I couldn't face. I didn't think, didn't breathe. I slid out of bed, my feet silent on the carpet, every muscle screaming to run but terrified to make a sound. The room pulsed with the storm's rhythm, lightning flashing, each burst showing the closet door swaying slightly, as if something inside was breathing. "Get out!" my mind screamed, and I obeyed, tiptoeing to the door, the hallway stretching endlessly before me. Each step was a lifetime, the cold air biting my skin, the house's shadows clawing at my back. I didn't run downstairs. I glided, my body weightless with terror, until I reached the dining room. The table loomed like a fortress, its heavy, wood my only sanctuary. I crawled beneath it, curling into a ball, my breath shallow, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "You're safe here," I lied to myself. but the house disagreed. The air grew heavier, the storm's roar fading behind a new sound. Footsteps slow and uneven descending the stairs. They weren't human, not really. Chaotic, like something stumbling, crashing, hunting. I pressed my hands to my mouth, stifling a sob as the footsteps grew closer, circling the dining room. "They know where you are," the cold whispered, and I believed it, my world shrinking to the space beneath that table, my heart a drumbeat of dread. The footsteps stopped, and the silence was worse than death. I crouched beneath the table, my body trembling, the air so thick I could barely breathe. The storm raged outside, but it was a distant hum compared to the terror inside. Then I heard it again, those steps, erratic, lurching like something broken trying to move. They entered the dining room, each thud a hammer against my chest. "Don't look," I begged myself, but my eyes betrayed me, drawn to the edge of the tablecloth. In the dim light, I saw them. Two bare feet caked in mud, glistening with rain, their skin a sickly yellow. They weren't human, not entirely. Cuts crisscrossed their legs, deep and jagged like they'd crawled through a forest of thorns. The ankles twisted unnaturally, as if they could barely hold weight. Yet they stood swaying inches from my hiding place. I bit my lip until it bled, fighting the scream clawing at my throat. Then something fell. A heavy metallic clatter that echoed through the room. A wrench. It lay there, glinting in the faint light, a promise of violence. My eyes locked on it, my mind screaming, "If they bend down, you're dead." The feet didn't move, didn't reach for the wrench. They just stood there, silent, as if savoring my fear. Minutes stretched into eternity, the storm's lightning casting their shadow across the floor, warped and monstrous. Then, slowly, they turned, their steps stumbling, chaotic, toward the front door. I didn't dare breathe until I heard it open and shut, the sound swallowed by the rain. They were gone, but they'd been here. I didn't move, not for hours, my body frozen beneath the table. The wrench's glint burned into my eyes. The storm raged on, but its fury felt distant, a hollow echo compared to the terror that had walked through my house. I kept waiting for the footsteps to return, for the door to burst open, for those twisted, muddy legs to find me again. But there was only rain, endless rain, washing away the world outside while I drowned in fear inside. "You're safe now," I whispered, but the words tasted like lies. The house wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to whatever had stood there, its presence lingering in the cold air, the shadows, the silence. When dawn finally broke, gray and weak, I crawled out, my limbs stiff, my heart bruised. I picked up the wrench, its weight heavy in my small hands, and hid it in my room, terrified my parents would find it. I checked the front door, locked as if nothing had happened. But something did happen. My mind screamed, and the truth of it crushed me. I didn't tell my parents, not then, not for years. I was too scared they'd blame me, too scared they'd know I'd failed to lock the doors, to keep the house safe. That night changed me. I slept with a nightlight, the dark a monster I couldn't face. Every shadow was a threat, every creak a warning. I'd let something in, and it never really left. That night taught me a truth I'll never forget. The world isn't safe, and neither is your home. I grew up, but the fear stayed, a shadow stitched to my soul. I lock every door now, check every window, not because I'm careful, but because I know what's out there. Or worse, what's already inside. Lock your doors at night. It's not just advice, it's a plea, born from a night when I learned that monsters aren't just in stories. They walk through your house, leave their tools behind, and haunt you long after they're gone. Don't let them in. The rain didn't just fall. It whispered secrets I wasn't meant to hear. I was 15, trapped in a body that betrayed me at every turn. Panic attacks that stole my breath, fainting spells that dropped me without warning, and a strange need for silence to sleep, a silence the world rarely gave. My name doesn't matter, what matters is that night, a rainy Saturday in May when the world turned upside down. I lived with my parents in a house too big for just the three of us, its rooms echoing with the ghosts of siblings they'd never had. The rain was my enemy. It pattered against the roof, each drop a needle in my mind, keeping sleep just out of reach. People say rain is soothing, but to me it was a tormentor, a thief that stole my peace and left me staring at the ceiling, my heart racing for no reason at all. That night, the rain wasn't a storm, but it was heavy, relentless, soaking the world in a gray haze. I lay in bed, the darkness pressing against my eyes, the air thick with the scent of wet earth seeping through the window. My parents were asleep down the hall, their snores a faint comfort, but I was alone in my battle with the rain. You'll never sleep, it seemed to say, each drop a taunt, a challenge. I pressed my pillow over my ears, but the sound burrowed through, mocking my weakness. By midnight, I knew I was fighting a losing battle. Get up, my mind urged, and I listened, desperate for anything to quiet the noise in my head. I wasn't going to win against the rain, so I surrendered to it. The clock glowed 1 a.m., its red numbers a silent judgment of my sleeplessness. My room felt like a prison, the walls closing in, the rain's rhythm a relentless warden. I couldn't stay there, trapped in my own head, my pulse racing with every drop that hit the roof. Do something, I told myself, and the idea came like a lifeline. A walk. Not just any walk, but one in the rain, the way my parents always encouraged when sleep betrayed me. They said it was safe, that our quiet neighborhood and the well-lit park nearby were my sanctuary. They were wrong. I slipped out of bed, my bare feet cold against the floor, and pulled on a rain jacket, its hood heavy with the promise of relief. I didn't bother with an umbrella. Let the rain have me, I thought, let it wash away the noise in my mind. My phone stayed on the nightstand. Its glowing screen would only keep me awake, a temptation I didn't need. I crept downstairs, the house silent except for the rain's soft chant, and stepped outside. The air was cool, thick with the scent of wet grass and asphalt. The park stretched before me, its lamps casting pools of light through the drizzle, inviting me in. Just walk, I told myself, and I did, my sneakers sinking into the soft earth, the rain kissing my face. For a moment, I felt free, the world mine, alone until I saw it lying in the street, waiting. The park was a dreamscape, but dreams can turn to nightmares. The rain fell in soft curtains, blurring the world, each drop a prism catching the park's lamplight. Trees swayed gently, their branches heavy with water, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. I walked deeper, my jacket soaked, my heart lighter with every step. The park had always been my refuge, its paths familiar, its lights a promise of safety. You're fine, I told myself, the rain's rhythm almost soothing now, a lullaby I'd never known. But then I saw it, a shape, long and black, sprawled across the street that cut through the park. What is that? My steps slowed, my breath catching. The air suddenly heavier, colder. At first I thought it was debris, a garbage bag tossed by the wind. But the longer I stared, the clearer it became. A person, face down, motionless in the rain. My stomach twisted, a sick heat rising in my chest. They're hurt, my mind screamed, or worse, dead. The street was empty. No cars, no signs of an accident, just this figure abandoned in the downpour. I stood frozen, the rain soaking my hair, my hands trembling inside my pockets. "Walk away," a voice whispered, but my parents' lessons echoed louder. "Help those in need." I took a step forward, then another, my sneakers splashing in puddles, the figure growing sharper. Black pants, a dark plaid shirt, clothes too thin for the rain. Who lies in the street like that? The question gnawed at me, and with every step, the park's lights seemed to dim, the rain song turning sinister, a warning I didn't heed. Each step toward the figure felt like a step into a void. The rain stung my face, colder now, as if the world itself was warning me to turn back. The man, I was sure it was a man now, lay still, his plaid shirt clinging to his back, the street a mirror of rain and shadow. My heart pounded, my breath shallow, my body screaming to flee, but I kept moving, driven by a duty I didn't fully understand. "You have to help," I told myself, but the closer I got, the heavier the air became, thick with a wrongness I couldn't name. His clothes were wrong, too dark, too thin, like he'd wandered out of a nightmare, not a rainy night. I was 10 feet away when it happened. A sound, sharp and jagged, tore through the park. Not human, not animal, but something broken. A howl twisted by pain, echoing from the trees behind me. My body froze, adrenaline flooding my veins, my eyes darting to the dark. What was that? The rain seemed to pause, the world holding its breath, but nothing moved in the shadows. The sound came from deeper in the park, too far to be a threat, yet it clawed at my mind, a puzzle with no answer. I stood there, rain dripping down my neck, my pulse a drumbeat in my ears. "Turn back." The howl seemed to say, but I couldn't. The man on the street needed me, or so I thought. I took another step, my eyes locked on his still form, unaware that I'd just walked into a trap. The world shattered when he moved. I'd turned back to the street, my eyes on the man, expecting a victim, a body broken by some unseen tragedy. But he wasn't broken. In a single fluid motion he sat up, his head snapping toward me, his face lit by the park's dim lamps. His smile wasn't human. It stretched too wide, too sharp, a crescent of teeth that gleamed with something dark, something hungry. My vision tunneled, the rain a distant hum, my legs heavy as stone. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, as he stood, his movements jerky, unnatural, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. In his hand a kitchen knife glinted, its blade catching the light, a promise of blood. "Run!" my mind screamed, but before I could he charged, his smile unyielding, his voice a guttural roar. "I'll kill you!" The words sliced through the rain, raw and real, shattering the dreamlike haze. I turned and ran, my sneakers slipping on wet grass, the park's lights blurring into streaks of gold. He was behind me, his steps heavy, uneven, the knife a shadow. My mind. "Don't look back," I told myself, my lungs burning, my heart a wild animal in my chest. The park, once my refuge, was now a maze, its trees looming like sentinels, the rain a curtain hiding my escape. I didn't dare lead him to my house, so I veered toward the woods, the same woods where that howl had come from. "You're going to die," the rain whispered. But I ran harder, the knife's threat closer than the storm. The woods swallowed me, and I let them. My legs burned, my breath ragged, as I plunged into the trees, their branches clawing at my jacket. The rain a relentless shroud. The park's lights faded behind me, the world shrinking to shadows and wet earth. "Keep moving," I told myself, but my body was failing, my vision blurring, the panic attack I'd feared clawing at my chest. I didn't know if he was still behind me, but I felt him, his smile a weight on my back, his knife a promise in the dark. The howl I'd heard earlier echoed in my mind, a warning I'd ignored, and now I was here, lost in the very place it had come from. I stumbled, my foot catching a root and collapsed behind a tree, my hand sinking into mud. "Hide!" my mind screamed, and I pressed myself against the trunk, my breath shallow, the rain masking my gasps. The woods were alive, branches swaying, leaves whispering, but no footsteps followed. I waited, minutes stretching into eternity, my heart slowing but never calming. Is he gone? I couldn't know, but I couldn't stay. I crept forward, taking the long way around the park, my eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of light. The rain was my ally now, hiding my tracks, but the fear was a chain, binding me to that moment. I reached the edge of the park, the streetlights a faint hope, and ran, never looking back. I made it home, but I didn't escape. The door slammed behind me, my body collapsing onto the floor, my clothes dripping, my mind a storm louder than the rain outside. I crawled to my bed, the familiar walls of my room no comfort, their shadows twisting into that man's smile, his knife. "You're safe," I lied to myself, but my hands shook, my breath caught. The panic attack I'd held at bay now crashing over me like a wave. I didn't call the police, didn't wake my parents. I couldn't face their questions, their worry. The truth that I'd walked into danger and barely walked out. What was he? The question haunted me. His face burned into my mind. Those eyes that weren't human, that howl that didn't belong. I lay there, drenched, staring at the ceiling, the rain still falling outside, each drop a reminder of the night I'd survived. I didn't sleep, not then, not for days. The park, my sanctuary, was tainted now, its paths a map of fear. "You'll never be the same," the rain whispered, and it was right. That night broke something in me, a piece I'd never get back, a trust in the world that had vanished in the dark. Some nightmares don't end when you wake. I'm older now, but that night lives in me, a scar that aches when it rains. I don't walk in the park anymore, don't trust the dark, don't believe in safety. Who was he? I'll never know, but his smile, that howl, they're pieces of a puzzle I can't solve. Stay inside when it rains. It's not just advice, it's a warning, carved from a night when the world showed me its teeth. Don't go looking for monsters. They'll find you. The wilderness was my sanctuary, but even sanctuaries can betray you. I'm Anisha, 29, a woman who finds peace in the wild, where the world's noise fades and I can breathe again. I grew up in Northern California, chasing the kind of solitude only a forest or a river can offer, the kind that stitches your soul back together. A few months ago, my life unraveled. My relationship ended, leaving me raw, hollow, craving escape. I needed to be alone. So I packed my truck with gear and drove. No plan, no destination. Just a pull toward a riverside spot I'd found years before. It wasn't a campsite, not really. Just a hidden bend in the river, reachable by a faint dirt road that wound through endless nothing. The sky was gray, the air heavy with the promise of rain. But I didn't care. The wild would heal me, I thought, as the trees closed in, their branches whispering secrets I longed to hear. But the wild had other plans. The moment I turned onto that dirt road, my heart sank. A gray truck and a white one sat parked near the trailhead, their presence a violation of my solitude. Someone else is here. The thought stung, sharp and bitter. I'd driven hours for silence, for a world without people, and now this. I sat in my truck, the engine idling, my fingers tight on the wheel, debating whether to leave. You can still find peace, I told myself, convincing myself the river was big enough to share. But as I stepped out, the first drops of rain kissed my skin, and a chill ran through me. Not from the cold, but from something deeper, something watching. The river called, but the truck screamed intrusion. I grabbed my pack, the weight of it, grounding me, and started down the trail, the dirt soft under my boots, the air thick with the scent of pine and wet earth. The rain was light, a gentle drizzle that clung to my hair, but it felt like a warning, each drop a whisper to turn back. You're overthinking, I told myself, but the sight of those trucks, gray and white, hulking like predators, gnawed at me. I'd come for solitude, not company, and their presence felt like a theft. I hiked deeper, the river's murmur growing louder, its waters glinting through the trees. They're probably far away, I reasoned, the trail wide enough to keep us apart. But doubt lingered, heavy as the clouds above. I stopped, scanning the trailhead, half expecting to see someone watching. The trucks were empty, no voices, no movement, just the rain's soft patter and the river's song. Why does it feel wrong? My gut churned, a primal instinct I'd learned, to trust in the wild. I could turn back, find another spot, but I'd driven too far, needed this too much. Keep going, I urged myself, adjusting my pack, my boots sinking deeper into the mud. The trail curved, hiding the trucks from view, but their shadow followed me, a weight I couldn't shake. As I walked, the rain grew steadier, the forest darker, and I felt it again, that sense of being watched, not by eyes, but by something older, something hungry. The forest parted, and there they were, two men, shadows in the rain. I'd hiked maybe 15 minutes, the river's edge glinting through the trees, when I saw them, their figures bulky against the water's flow. They were fishing, rods in hand, but their eyes weren't on the line. They're watching something else, I realized. My steps slowing, my heart picking up pace. They were older, bearded, their boots caked in mud, their jackets worn but heavy. One of them moved suddenly, draping his jacket over something on the ground. His movements too quick, too deliberate. What are they hiding? The question burned, my skin prickling under the rain's touch. The other man turned, catching my eye, his face splitting into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just shooting cans," he called. His voice rushed, jagged like he'd rehearsed. He's lying." The words came unbidden, my gut screaming what my mind couldn't prove. I nodded, forcing a tight smile, my feet moving past them, the river's murmur drowned by my pulse. His words echoed, too casual, too forced, like a mask, slipping. Shooting cans? In the rain? The lie hung in the air, thick as the mist rising from the river. I kept walking, my pack heavier now, my eyes darting to the trees, half expecting to see what they'd hidden. The rain fell harder, blurring the world, but their presence lingered, a stain on the wild I'd come to claim. "You're not alone," Forrest whispered, and for the first time I believed it, my hand brushing the holster hidden under my jacket. I built my camp, but it felt like a trap. The spot I chose was tucked away, trees thick around me, the river's edge just visible, through the leaves. I pitched my tent, the rain now a steady drum, each stake driven into the earth, a defiance against the unease gnawing at me. "You're safe here," I told myself, pulling out a book, its pages soft under my fingers. The river's song almost enough to drown out the men's voices in my head. But their lie, shooting cans, clung to me, a splinter I couldn't pull free. The rain soaked my jacket, my hair, but I stayed outside, letting the wild hold me, its embrace both comfort and warning. Then I saw him again, across the river, a lone figure in the fading light. "It's him," my mind hissed. The man who'd spoken, his jacket now open, his eyes locked on me. He waved, a gesture too casual, too knowing. "Don't respond," my gut warned, but I raised a hand, my voice betraying me as I shouted my name, Anisha, across the water. His face changed, a flicker of something dark, and then he pulled it out. A camera, disposable, cheap, its lens glinting like a predator's eye. He's taking your picture. The realization hit like ice, my breath catching. The rain, turning cold. He snapped the shot, his movements deliberate, then turned and walked away, swallowed by the trees. Why me? The question burned. My camp no longer a refuge, the river's song now a dirge, the forest closing in like a cage. Night fell, and the forest turned predator. I crawled into my tent, the rain a soft chant against the canvas. But sleep was a stranger. My mind replayed the breakup. Each word a knife, each memory a weight. But it wasn't the past keeping me awake. Something's out there, I felt it. A pressure in the air, a pulse beneath the rain's rhythm. The river hummed, its voice cold, unforgiving. And then I heard it. Steps, faint, uneven, circling my camp. Not an animal. The sound was deliberate. Human but wrong. Like someone stepping through mud, testing the ground. He's back. My heart thudded, my hands shaking as I reached for the handgun tucked by my sleeping bag. You're not helpless, I told myself. But the steps grew closer, their rhythm erratic. A hunter stalking prey. The rain masked their source. The tent's walls too thin, too fragile. I lay still, my breath shallow, my eyes fixed on the zipper, half expecting it to slide open, revealing that man, his camera, his lie. What does he want? The question was a noose tightening with each step. The forest no longer mine, its shadows his allies. I gripped the gun tighter, the metal cold against my palm, my mind screaming to act, to fight, to survive. You're not. Alone, the steps whispered, and I knew they were right. The night alive with something I couldn't outrun. I stepped into the rain, and fear became my weapon. The steps stopped, the silence a blade against my throat, but I couldn't wait, couldn't hide. I unzipped the tent, my gun steady, my heart a war drum in my chest. The rain stung my face, the forest pitch black, its trees looming like judges. I clicked my flashlight, its beam cutting through the drizzle, and there he was. The man, half hidden behind a tree, his face blank, his eyes empty, a small axe in his hand. He's going to kill you. The thought was ice, but I burned. My fear, forging steel. Leave now or I'll kill you, I said, my voice steady. A lie to mask the scream inside. He didn't flinch, his expression a void, as if my words were air. He's not right, I realized, his mind somewhere else, somewhere broken. He mumbled low and slurred about his friend Ivan, how he'd taken care of him. What does that mean? The words chilled me, darker than the rain, heavier than the axe. I fired a shot into the trees, the sound shattering the night, his body jerking in surprise. Drop it, I commanded, my gun leveled, my voice iron. He let the axe fall, its blade sinking into the mud, and I felt a flicker of control, a spark in the dark. I made him remove his shoes, their soles caked with earth, ensuring he couldn't follow. Check him, my mind urged, and I did, forcing him to empty his pockets, his hands shaking, his eyes still distant. I ordered him to grab my gear, watching every move, the flashlight's beam, his prison. He tossed my pack out, fumbling, pathetic, and I packed fast, the axe now mine, its weight a grim trophy. You're getting out, I told myself, but the forest watched, its silence judging, the rain a veil hiding what lay ahead. I fled, but the forest didn't let me go. I threw his shoes into the dark, their arcs swallowed by the rain, and ordered him to walk away. My gun trained on his back. He stumbled, his bare feet sinking into mud, his figure fading into the trees. Move, I told myself, grabbing my pack, the axe heavy inside, the tent left behind, a sacrifice for survival. The trail back was a nightmare, the rain blinding, The flashlight's beam too weak against the forest's grip. Is he following? The question dogged me, each snap of a twig a threat, each shadow his smile. I hiked fast, my boots slipping, my breath ragged, the river's roar my only guide. I reached my truck, the truck still there, gray and white, silent witnesses to my terror. I sped away, the road a blur, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I got signal, I called the police, my voice breaking as I described the man, the axe, Ivan's name. What did he do to Ivan? The question lingered, a ghost in my mind as the rain washed the road ahead, the night swallowing my answers. The wild is no one's friend, and I learned that the hard way. Months have passed, but that night lives in me, a scar that tightens. When I hear rain, I don't camp alone anymore, don't trust the silence, don't believe in safety. What happened to Ivan? The question haunts me, his name a shadow in my mind, a story I'll never know. The man's blank eyes, his axe, his camera, they're pieces of a puzzle too dark to solve. Carry a weapon. It's not just advice. It's a truth, forged in a night when I stared death down and walked away. I'm Anisha and I survived, but survival isn't peace. The wild watches and it waits. Don't go looking for solitude in its arms, it might find you first.